Mark Birch is the founder of the global sales community, the Enterprise Sales Forum, and here are his 5 steps to thriving in sales.
I think first you got to understand what is an enterprise deal versus a transaction. I look at what I've done in my career as a complex sale. So you have multiple decision makers, you're dealing with very complex solutions that generally require a team to help implement and stand up in the organization. And it generally has pretty significant organizational impact. That's a big one. Oftentimes people will talk about, I just sold to the enterprise and they sold 5 licenses to a small department. That's not a large organizational impact. Yeah, I think there is a perspective on how you carve out your market, and that will change from company to company. Some companies will look at the size or number of employees. Some companies may take a look at revenue. In some other perspective, maybe here are a list of target accounts that are very notable or have large market share. So I think from an individual organization perspective, you just need to be able to define, as a sales organization, how are we carving out that market between what is small transactional stuff, what may be kind of mid-sized, mid-market, versus what are the real quote-unquote whales. I think one, it depends on where you are as an organization. So I deal a lot with startups, for example. And oftentimes it is kind of like, oh, let's look at a list of companies. They seem to need a solution like us, and let's just go after them and figure out how to get in at the bottom level, right? So there's that approach, it's a little bit ad hoc, but I think a much wiser approach is if you're a little bit more established, like you have a good sales team intact, you want to look at it from a top-down perspective. Here we're carving out our market. You know, your VP or head of sales is going to have kind of a definition of, okay, this is the overall market size. These are the types of companies we're looking for. Here are the personas, ideal customer profiles. And then we pull that down into how that actually translates from a management perspective, a rep perspective. And so you really do, I think if you want to have a very specific approach that's well laid out, I think at the beginning of the year, when you start to map out what we want to do from an organization perspective, it does need to be a team effort. Otherwise, one of these deals could definitely percolate, but your organization's just not ready for it. The messaging is out there. Open up any annual report. Look at all the investor stuff that's pushed out by these big companies. There's a ton of stuff out there. Read it, because a CEO, just in their letter alone, you don't even have to bother with the balance sheet. Leave that for a second. Just look at the letter to shareholders that a CEO chairman will share. And in there, you will see what the strategic initiatives are for the coming year. Then you can start to break that down. Well, okay, we're going to be a much more digitally oriented company. Okay, so what does that mean? Again, going down the IT stream, what does that mean for a CIO? Well, they're going to have to deliver a lot of stuff, right? They're going to have to deliver on these highly innovative, things they're going to create for the business to be a digital organization. What does that mean for the VP of software engineering? Well, they're going to have to juggle a whole lot of stuff. So how are they going to prioritize and manage just the influx of new product that they're going to release out there and all the risks that's associated with it? What does that mean for a DevOps engineer who has to orchestrate all this to happen? So you start to build from the highest level of the organization impact statements that can help trigger that level of interest and say, you know what, that is something we're challenged with. And they may not be the person that can run with it. Maybe they are, and you luck out. And they say, you know what, that's something that I'm actually thinking about. Yeah, let's chat some more. But even if it's not, if they're at least interested, they feel that this is something that the organization could get value out of, they'll help point you in the right direction. Actually, that happened to one of my colleagues who was reaching out to a bank out in Australia, reached out to the managing director, head of tech, who said, oh yeah, the person you need to speak to is this VP of software engineering. And they set up a conversation, and now that's going really well. So this stuff does happen. Again, it comes down to, have you done enough homework and research to really deconstruct your messaging in a way that's going to be meaningful to the people you're reaching out to? First, you need to map it out as an organization, right? So who's in charge? Jeff Weiner, Reid Hoffman, they're tightly integrated. I think that reaching out to them actually makes a ton of sense in this instance. But you also need to figure out, well, who are the people that are going to get the most value out of our solution? In this case, you're presenting the Salesman Podcast as an opportunity to reach out to the global network of sales professionals. So from there, you can find the people that are going to be most applicable to. And then I start to actually build a matrix of, okay, well, what are these folks going to really care about most? And I start with, is there any sort of public statements that came from Jeff or Reid or any executives that I can start to use as something that feels like it's going to be a future initiative, like a direction that they want to lead? And that's generally a Google search that you can take, sometimes I really want to go deep, it may take 30 minutes, but it doesn't have to take that long. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that's already out there, and both Reed and Jeff have been very prolific in terms of their posts and their sharing. So once you kind of get an overall sense of what do they want to do for the next 12 months, then I would reach out to one or either of them and craft a message which is very personal. Here's the thing, if you're doing the typical 15 to 18 to 25, God knows how many like email cadences people are plugging into these automated systems, no, if you're going to do that, then you might as well just stop. It's got to be a personalized approach, and it takes time. But this is the balance that you play when you deal in enterprise sales, right? Time commitment, versus what's the payoff. The reason organizations love enterprise sales is that even with the enormous cost and time involved, the upside is so huge that it all makes sense. I mean, it's baked into the margin, particularly in software subscription services. Like, I could sell a deal for $1 million. That may have taken 9 to 12 months to close, but my cost of sale may not necessarily be that high compared to the massive margin I made on that sale. Versus if I'm selling something at a 5 to 10K average contract value, like the more time I spend on it, like the less time I'm spending on more of those type size deals, and that time effort isn't warranted. So that's the crux you're always playing. But if LinkedIn is something that you'd say, like, look, I have an ideal customer list. If I want these logos to be represented through the Salesman podcast, then it makes sense to put in that effort. And so your follow-up email isn't touching base or just following up or an alligator like GIF, coming to eat people, like, where did you go? If you're going to take that approach, then you've already lost. Executive level engagement means you are trying to be insightful, informative, valuable. If you're not thinking about how to be valuable in each statement, and if you don't feel intimately comfortable with what you're sending out as representative of you as a professional and the brand that you represent, then do not send it out.